You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is a communications trainer and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
Alper, the title of today's podcast is The Cobbler's Children, which of course is short for the phrase, the cobbler's children have no shoes. And it's a pretty well-known phrase. It basically means the expert gives out his expert advice to other people, but his or her own family doesn't benefit from it. So the cobbler's children have no shoes, even though the cobbler is making shoes. There's a similar phrase to that in Turkish, right?
Yes, I was just thinking about that. Except we're not talking about shoemaking, we're talking about tailoring clothes. Mm-hmm. The tailor cannot fix his own clothes, something like that.
How do you say that in Turkish?
I wasn't familiar with the cobbler, by the way.
Yeah. How do you say that phrase in Turkish, the one about the tailor?
That would be terzi kendi söküğünü dikemez. In this case, we're not literally talking about fixing the cloth, but we're talking about, I don't know how to call it in English, but this part of the cloth where you need to intervene, otherwise it's going to break looser.
Like the seam?
It's a typical fix for a tailor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a very typical easy fix. Uh-huh. And for some reason, we have come to believe in the country that the tailors are incapable of fixing their own clothes, which is something that I don't buy, by the way, and I can challenge you on that. But let me hear your thoughts first.
Okay, so I will tell you my thoughts first. And then before we wrap up the podcast, I want to hear why you don't believe this phrase. Because
I would love that, yes.
I do. I totally have a cobbler's children problem. And in order for this podcast to not become just Matt going on and on rambling about the problems that he has,
I think we're way past that in the past 45 episodes.
Let's give our listeners some value. Let's package this in a way that it's of some value to our listeners, and that is that for a communications trainer or for a communications coach, these are the three fundamental skills that are so important that when a communications coach is always watching out for these three skills. And when the communications coach realizes that these skills are atrophying in him, he's like, oh my God, I need to do something about this. So that's the value. That's the value that it could bring to others, is that these are the three fundamental skills that you need. And
I'm all ears.
Okay. So the first one is public speaking. And you and I, we've both been through Toastmasters, and we could go on and on for days about everything that we don't like about Toastmasters. So in no way am I saying that I have, drank the Kool-Aid and I love all things Toastmasters. In no way am I saying that. Mm-hmm. But I recently realized that as much as I tell people that public speaking is important, and as much as I have spent years developing that skill and probably have that skill on an above average level, still it's not as good as I would like it to be. And so I recently rejoined a Toastmasters club. And it's a Toastmasters club that mostly meets virtually, which, when you and I went through Toastmasters, we went through it in the pre-COVID era where everything was face-to-face. And so we worked on the skill of getting up in front of a group of people who are actually sitting in the same room as you and speaking to those people. Mm-hmm. And that skill has atrophied in me somewhat. But a skill that has definitely atrophied is the ability to do that well when you're speaking in a virtual environment. And Toastmasters, for all of its problems, and you and I could go on and on for days about all of Toastmasters' problems, but one thing that Toastmasters is brilliant at is teaching people the skill of being able to stand in front of a group of people and still function well. And
Yes.
I stay away from saying being able to stand in front of a group of people and not be nervous, because some people, they magically get over their nervousness, and others are nervous all the time. And me, I'm definitely in that second group. Even 10 years later, I still get nervous when standing in front of a group of people. So that's why I say that Toastmasters doesn't teach you how to stand in front of a group of people and not be nervous. Toastmasters does teach you, though, how to stand in front of a group of people and still function well. And I want
it also teaches that you're not going to die.
Yeah, so that's true. It teaches you that you're not going to die. So that's one, is the importance of public speaking and Toastmasters as a valuable organization for being able to work on that skill. The second skill that has kind of atrophied in me and that I want to work on is the skill of storytelling. And, we give this advice all the time to our clients. We tell them, okay, you need to be able to tell a story. And we hear this word storytelling all the time. And I'm pretty good at figuring out how to tell a story in 3 sentences. And I'm pretty good at figuring out how to tell a story at book length, but in the middle ground there, like being able to tell a story in like a few minutes, I'm not particularly good at that. Or maybe actually my skills in that department are above average, but still they're not what I want them to be. So the ability and what I've done for that recently, and this is very recent, just within the last couple of days, I joined an organization called Pitch Club. And it started out, and I guess its core is being able to pitch as a startup founder, being able to pitch your idea as a startup founder. But this group has expanded that definition to other things too. So if you want to convince your wife how awesome it would be to take a vacation in the mountains rather than, sitting on the beach in the Bahamas, or the benefits of buying a house or something like that. This club, this organization teaches you how to do that. So in addition to pitching your idea for a startup, it teaches you to do these other things too. And so we've got number 1, which is public speaking. We've got number 2, which is storytelling. And the third skill that's really important is visual design. And first of all, my visual design skills have always been pretty much average. And I'm one of those people who like looks at good visual design and thinks that's awesome. So, but I have a hard time reproducing it myself. So it's how that saying in art goes, I'm not an artist, but I know it when I see it. It's kind of like that for me with visual design. And in my line of work, which is, coaching for communications to tech people and finance people, the bar for visual design is pretty low. So if you have average or slightly above average visual design skills, you're going to do fine. No visual designer in the world would look at me and say, oh, wow, Matt has some great skills at visual design. And I had
not yet.
Yeah.
Let's be optimistic.
Not yet. Yeah. That's the more optimistic way of putting it. And I am definitely not yet on the cover of Architectural Digest magazine, or, I'm not the featured graphic designer in Graphic Designer Monthly. Maybe one of these days I will be, but I'm definitely not now. So when I say that I'm working on my visual design skills, they're pretty basic things like, how to put together a color palette. What colors are complementary? What colors are grating to the eye? Why do you not put blue text on a red background? Stuff like that. For that group of people who want to learn that level of visual design skills, there are plenty of free resources. I mean, you can go to YouTube and watch like graphic design tips for the rest of your life if that's the kind of stuff that you're studying. So there's no shortage of materials on that. So those are the three fundamental skills that I'm thinking of. One is public speaking, the second is storytelling, and the third is visual design. And for me, as a community, I think that these skills are fundamental for pretty much all human beings. If you need to present your idea to a group of people, you're going to need something from these three skills. So when I and myself see them atrophying, that those skills need to be worked on. You said,
I agree.
Yeah, you said earlier that.
Okay. So
this thing you said earlier about disagreeing with this phrase, the cobbler's children, or the what was it in Turkish, the tailor.
The tailor.
Tailor. Yeah. When you say that you disagree with that, tell me more. What do you mean?
Before I come to that, let's make a mental note of talking about visual design in a future episode.
Okay.
Because I can make some contributions to that too.
Oh wow.
But what I mean by the tailor is, okay, I'm sure there's a reason why this proverb came to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there was one tailor or a couple of tailors or several tailors in history that actually couldn't fix their own clothes, but it doesn't sound logical. I mean, it's like, I'm a presentation designer apart from the coaching, and I design visuals and I design slides for other companies. It would be like I design good slides for my clients, but my own presentations are horrible in design.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be the case. Therefore, it's kind of difficult for me to believe that if you're doing something professionally, in this case, the tailor or the cobbler, you would do a mediocre job or a bad job when it comes to fixing your own things. So it doesn't make rational sense.
Yeah, I would.
I'm sure there is something more profound behind, but strictly speaking, from a rational point of view, I don't think it just makes any sense.
I think that I agree that there is a problem with this phrase, the cobbler's children, or the tailor's clothing, et cetera, et cetera. I think there is a potential problem with this phrase, and it's highly likely that actually the cobbler's children actually do have nice shoes, and the tailor's clothes actually do fit well. Those things are highly likely.
Yes.
And it's also highly likely that if the cobbler feels that there's a problem with the cobbler's or with the children's shoes, or if the tailor feels that there's a problem with the tailor's clothing, they're looking at it not from the perspective of an average person with other things to do. They're looking at it from the perspective of a cobbler's idea of perfection or a tailor's idea of perfection. And it's kind of like that here for me. You know, when I mentioned that public speaking or storytelling are important current focuses for me, or foci, I guess, whatever the plural of focus is, it's that for me. When I mentioned those two things, it's not like I'm saying that my skills in those areas are terrible and I'm a worthless human being. I'm just saying that my skills in those areas are probably above average, but still there's a lot of room to grow. And if I'm going to tell people that they need to improve those skills, I should probably be doing the same thing myself.
You need to put your what's the phrase with the mouth and the foot?
You need to, how does that phrase go? I don't think there's a foot. That's a different phrase, completely different meaning. But you need to put your mouth where your money is, or you need to put your money where your mouth is. Does that sound like I'm on to the right phrase there? You need to put your
I think
money
there's
where
some
your
money
mouth is.
and mouth involved. I don't know the exact phrase. We can look it up.
The one with foot is foot in mouth, which means that you've said the wrong thing and you have insulted somebody when you did not intend to. So I don't think that's the phrase that you were looking for.
Unless you're insulted, no.
Correct. Okay. So before we wrap up for today, is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No. Like I said, in a future episode, let's cover the visual design and talk about its importance. And I think that will be it for today.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Alper, and I will talk to you soon then.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.